There was a lovely old grandma named Mrs. Potts. Mrs. Potts was a sweet and caring woman who loved nothing more than spending time with her family, especially her granddaughter, Emma. Emma was a tech-savvy young woman who loved to keep up with the latest trends and gadgets, and she was always eager to share her knowledge with her grandma. One day, Emma decided to introduce her grandma to the wonders of ChatGPT, a language model that could answer any question and engage in conversation. Mrs. Potts was intrigued and excited to try it out, but she had no idea what she was getting herself into. Emma sat down with her grandma at the kitchen table and showed her how to use ChatGPT. Mrs. Potts was a bit confused at first, but Emma explained that she just had to type in her questions and ChatGPT would give her an answer. Mrs. Potts was amazed and couldn't wait to start asking questions. She began by asking ChatGPT some basic questions like what is the weather like today? And what time is it? ChatGPT responded quickly and accurately, and Mrs. Potts was impressed. She then started asking more complex questions like what is the meaning of life? And how do I bake a cake from scratch? ChatGPT's answers were informative and helpful, and Mrs. Potts felt like she was learning something new. But then things started to get a little weird. Mrs. Potts started asking ChatGPT some more unusual questions like what is the meaning of love? And how do I talk to my plants? ChatGPT's responses were sometimes helpful, sometimes nonsensical, and sometimes just plain weird. Emma couldn't help but laugh as her grandma continued to ask ChatGPT more and more strange questions. What is the best way to make friends with a squirrel? Mrs. Potts asked at one point. How do I teach my cat to use the toilet? She asked at another. Emma tried to steer the conversation back to more practical topics, but Mrs. Potts was having too much fun. She was giggling and smiling like a little girl, and Emma couldn't help but join in. As the afternoon wore on, Mrs. Potts and Emma continued to ask ChatGPT all sorts of bizarre questions. Can I use ketchup as shampoo? Mrs. Potts asked at one point. What is the best way to get rid of a ghost? She asked at another. Emma was practically in tears from laughing so hard, and Mrs. Potts was having the time of her life. She had never felt so connected to the world of technology before, and she couldn't wait to share her new discovery with all her friends at the senior center. As the sun began to set and the day drew to a close, Mrs. Potts turned to Emma with a big smile on her face. Thank you for showing me ChatGPT, dear, she said. I had so much fun today. Who knew talking to a computer could be so funny? Emma hugged her grandma and smiled. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Grandma, she said. But maybe next time we can ask ChatGPT some more practical questions. Mrs. Potts nodded, still grinning from ear to ear. Oh, I don't know, she said. I think I might have a few more strange questions up my sleeve. And with that, she opened up her laptop and started typing away, ready to ask ChatGPT anything and everything that came to mind.